Alright, we're back with a new video. This is the 11th episode about transforming a laundry room into a bathroom. In the previous episode, we drilled through the slab for the future drains. I've made a playlist of all previous episodes and will add the link in the description. This is the playlist that's showing up. You can find all the episodes from the demolition up to this one, where we're going to build a frame with tracks and studs for drywall. Just the usual stuff. We cut the studs, we cut the tracks, we assemble, and we'll have our structure finished, ready for insulation and drywall. And once the drywall is up, I'll be able to make the separation between the bathtub and the shower and start building the niche in the shower. Then I can install the shower tray. Each step depends on the previous one, so we have to follow a certain order. If I install the tray first and then build the niche, I'll have trouble adding my structure. So we're focusing on the tracks and the studs. You'll see, there's nothing complicated about it. We do the crimping and we're done. Alright, the laser is set on the floor. I have a proper right angle on my reference marks. I had calculated the thickness of the insulation, the thickness of the track, the thickness of the drywall, the tiles, etc. The niche in the shower, the apron around the bathtub, I calculated everything. The laser projects onto the ceiling. I can screw in my track, here are my furring channels, and I'll still add reinforcements between them. The reinforcement runs the full length, we free it, then screw directly into the track. Originally, on this panel and this one, there was supposed to be a Geberit Duofix system. I changed my plans a bit. So, in the end, we're making a classic structure with tracks and studs for drywall. And the Geberit frame will go on this part and also here. We'll discuss it later. For now, we're focusing on the standard framing. I'm going to do the air barrier membrane differently because I'm not going to put fiberglass or rock wool insulati on this wall. There will be another type of insulation. We'll talk about it again in the next video. I might cut it or tape it to the ceiling for now. I'll see. So, that's done. I took out the nail gun. It's still the DeWalt, the DCN 890. It nails into concrete. It's perfect. In brick, it's so crumbly that it just makes holes. You see, I did a test. And here's what it looks like. But for concrete, it's great. The little tools are here. I'll explain everything to you as we go. I used the thickness of a drywall sheet by the window as my reference. My reference point is here. I don't know if you can see it. Yes, it's there. The laser is right on it. Same for the door. I've calculated everything. The thickness of the drywall. So it follows all the way along. We're good. Here, I just have to calculate the thickness of my insulation and the track. And it's the same. It's the same story as there. Here, I have no window or door, so I can move it forward or backward. I don't care. So we're good. We'll start by nailing on the floor. And then we do the ceiling. So yes, that's important. We can build the entire structure and end up with a new structure. Like, I could set up my structure, put up the drywall panels. Once the drywall panel is installed, I can come back and screw my stud into the drywall, which will go through another stud to recreate my structure. So, I don't know. Well, actually, I do know what I'm going to do since I'm going to set up my whole structure on this panel first and this panel. Then we'll do the insulation, but not necessarily in this video. After insulating everything, I install the drywall panels. is too. Okay, the rails are installed on the ceiling. We have 1 rail, 2 rails, and 3 rails of 3 meters each. I cut a section out of this rail, glued it with polymer adhesive, screwed it directly into the reinforcement, and it's held in place with a scrap piece of board and a screw directly into the joist. That prevents it from lifting when I screw my rail into the reinforcement. Of course, I could have put the clamp on the board and the joist, but I know myself, if I put the clamp there, I won't take it off for 3 months. Or reverse this part and use it as a spacer. The problem is, if you press too much, it will press on the drywall panel and it will pull out the screw heads. So that's not the goal. Here, just putting a board, it's really simple. You see, we let it rest, we put in a screw, and like I said, it prevents it from lifting up. And putting in a screw, and this board doesn't bother me for now, I'll remove it, maybe in 3 months or 4 months or never, we'll see. But for now, it's holding up very well. So it's glued, it's screwed in, and the reinforcement at the base was supposed to be used for the Geberit Duofix system. So this rail and the telescopic uprights. That's why I intentionally shifted the furring. I explained it in the video where I do the ceiling. I'll put the link in the description so you can see all that. But if you're building a standard structure, so with a rail and studs, make sure to attach it to a furring channel. When working on your ceiling, place the furring channel above your future rail and screw it in. For example, I attached everything to the furring channels since they run that way. And when I installed the rails on the ceiling, I made sure to mark everything on the white tape. Now all that's left is to screw in at the marked spots. So, I don't add reinforcement between each furring channel. It's completely unnecessary. It holds up just fine like this. So, like I told you, the Geberit Duofix system will go here, so I'm going to add a reinforcement. I'll put it above. And here, we'll need to free up the reinforcement for this entire partition. So, now that the ceiling is done, we can put the tracks on the floor, and then we'll put up the studs. I stuck the strip under the tracks. They're in place. All that's left is to secure them. So there are several ways to fix a track onto a concrete slab. The simplest and cheapest way would be to drill, use an anchor and screw, or a hammer set anchor. Otherwise, you can nail them directly with this type of nails. So here, I'm going to nail the bottom plate directly onto the concrete slab. If you have a wooden base that's about 20 mm thick, there are longer nails that will take the thickness of the base into account. So, the nail gun is the 2W DCN 880, you'll find the link in the description. It works perfectly, it's really suitable for this type of application. It's a concrete nail gun, you can also use it on steel. So, you just have to place it on the base plate or on the track, you pull the trigger and it drives the nail in on its own. And here you can even see that it's so powerful that it slightly bent the sides of the track, but that's not a problem. It'll go back to normal when we put in the studs and screw in the drywall. And you can see the power, it bent the sides of the track just with this length of nail. Alright, for the floor tracks, we're done. The nail gun is great, it's fast, but there's one big downside. You feel like playing with it and putting nails every 10 centimeters. There's no point in doing that. But like I said, it's so fast. Here I put them about every 30 centimeters. So for the floor tracks, it's done. I'll go over the layout and structure placement again. Meanwhile, we'll measure from floor to ceiling. For example, there's a dip here and the floor isn't straight, so I didn't use nails to avoid deforming the track. Now we cut the studs, and then I'll explain the layout to you. Alright, let's do a quick check before we start crimping. All the studs are cut and in place. I have nothing left to do. I even added tracks at the window and door. I'll film everything for you. So, I based it on the door and the window, and I put studs every 40 cm. So we had two options, as I told you. Either do a panel all in one go. So, install the frame, the insulation, the drywall, and for the other panel, we connect it to the one that was just finished. Or we can do the whole frame in one go, and then we'll do the insulation. And we install all the drywall once the insulation is in place. So in the corner, I have 3 studs. A double stud, and this one for this frame, it goes against the double studs. I'll crimp it if it fits. So I could crimp it, otherwise self-drilling screw. I made a small frame for you so you can understand. So, a little model. We have 3 studs here, and here I have a corner. You see? Here, I'll show you again. So this corner, drywall sheets, and I can install all my drywall sheets in one go. One last thing, because we've often talked about this machine, it's the Astute Cutter Guillotine from Edma. And I think I don't want to say anything wrong. I'll put a link with all the information in the description. I think there are two versions. Mine is the version that does track, stud, and furring channel. But it seems to me that there's a version that only does track and stud. So if you want to cut furring channels, make sure you have the right machine, because there's an adapter you need to use to cut furring channels. But this works really well. It's a cold cut process. It doesn't make any sparks. The cut is really clean. And above all, well, I couldn't do it because my floor had level differences between 5 mm and 1 centimeter. But if you have a level floor, a level ceiling, and you have, for example, 2.55 meters to cut, you put a stop next to the guillotine, the studs, you cut, or the furring channels, and it goes incredibly fast. There, to cut 2 studs, it took me 20 seconds each time, and that's it. Super fast. Okay, so now let's move on to crimping, and then I'll explain about the layout. Next, we'll crimp the studs together. I could use self-drilling screws, but I have the proper crimping tool to show you. And to make the studs perfectly flush, the best thing is to use a strong enough magnet. You put it in place. So it really makes the studs flush, and we'll be able to crimp the studs. Nothing is sticking out here. You must ensure it's completely flush. When you have an overlap of panels, there can be a misalignment. And if you ever have 2 studs like this, obviously it's going to cause a problem. If it's a single panel, it might work, but if it's the joint between 2 panels, it can be complicated. Then you'll really have to fix it with the tape. It really has to be flush. You see here, it's flush. We're good. I can crimp it. So the crimping pliers is this one. It's the Edma Twin Profile. I'll put the link in the description. The advantage is that you just have to do it. And that's it. It's done. It's punched. It's crimped. I can remove the studs. That's good. And there you go. It holds, so self-drilling screws aren't needed. Self-drilling screws work very well, but this crimping tool does cost money. You can make as many as you want. So there's no point in putting 1 every 10 cmets. I'll put 5 per double stud. That's more than enough. So in the corner, I have no choice but to use a self-drilling screw because the clamp won't fit. I have 3 studs, as I explained. A self-drilling screw works very well. 1. We're going to put in a second one. There you go, and now the 3 studs are fastened together with self-drilling screws. So I'll continue. Tracks and studs are done and crimped. Double studs are crimped together. Top and bottom track stud joints are crimped. Corner uses a self-drilling screw. The blue tapes are to show you where the drywall sheets will go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kinds of cuts, 6, 7, and a leftover piece. So I made sure to frame the window and the door. That's very important because often you see that the easy solution is to put a leftover piece on each side, at the top and at the bottom. And when you close the door or the window, over time, it will crack all around. So you really have to frame the door or the window and go at least halfway across the window or frame it completely. That's what I did. Since the layout means that here I have a full panel, 3 panels, so it really covers the window. Since this area will be tiled, it's not a big deal. But work around features like doors and windows, whether it's a door or a window. Make sure you don't have a joint that cracks around the window and the door, because that's really very ugly. Using filler or other methods will always lead to cracks because repeated opening and closing puts stress on it. Obviously, we're putting pressure on the plasterboard, so now that everything is done, in the next video, we'll be able to move on to insulation. And once that's done, we can put everything up. Alright, the next step is to insulate and install drywall. We'll revisit the rail and stud later since I'll need to make the bathtub apron. The niche in the shower, which will be 1.4 meters long and about 30 centimeters high, or maybe 35, we'll see. There will even be a built-in LED strip in this niche, so we'll come back to the track and stud. So, for those who are wondering, yes, it's a battery-powered crimping tool, the Hilti MPR19A, and I had customized the jaw. A card will appear somewhere, but I never know which side. The video link is in the description. I had gotten a jaw. It was a V22 for crimping 22mm copper. I had a spare one. And I had cut the Edma ergotop, which I had welded onto the jaw. And so that gives me a battery-powered crimping tool for tracks and studs. And it works really well. So I can also adapt it to the Gebery crimping tool since they use the same jaws. And honestly, it's a huge time saver. And most importantly, my arm doesn't hurt anymore. Doing this all day really strains your forearms. You see, it's the machine that does the work. Otherwise, there's this type of one-handed pliers. It's the same, it's really practical. It has a lot of force, but after a while, it strains your forearm. And the pliers you saw for crimping the double studs, that's here. I can't remember anymore. All the profiles from Edma. Anyway, all of this is Edma. It's pretty much them and the rest of the world in this field. The shears, just the usual kind, sheet metal shears. If you don't have it, I showed it to you earlier. The stud cutter. So Edma, I'll put all the links in the description. The ergotop too. It's super effective. Especially in the corner, this one wouldn't fit. So I was really glad to have these pliers, okay? We've gone over everything. Like I said, the next step is insulation. And I'm skipping the waterproof membrane because we're going to insulate with a material that provides thermal insulation, soundproofing, waterproofing, and airtightness. So we'll talk about that in the next video. Take care and see you in the next video.